Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Devil's Den Hockey. I said I was going to put out a video regarding my thoughts on the trade deadline. We are a few days removed from it. This is a video, I'm not going to lie, that I've been a little anxious to put together because there has been some very heated conversation on this topic. And I figured, you know what? I'm going to step my toe into it. I'm sure I'm going to get some backlash here, but hey, all I ask is that if you do disagree with my takes I'm going to be giving on the trade deadline, make sure to do so in a respectful and reasonable way. We don't need people slinging insults and things as such. So let's jump into this. My thoughts on the New Jersey Devils 2025 trade deadline. Now, for context, as we all know, heading into this year's trade deadline, we lost arguably our two best defensemen of the year in Dougie Hamilton and Jonas Siegenthaler, both of which essentially at this point are pretty much out indefinitely, and of course, losing Jack Hughes for the rest of the season as well, being a massive, massive, massive hit to the Devils. This is arguably your best to your second best player on the team, as well as losing two defensemen who have been fantastic for the Devils all year round. So this is a pretty heated trade deadline. There's a lot of needs that New Jersey needs to address. We have been sliding ever since Christmas. I don't think there's any point in denying that. This team is not the same team on the second half of the year as we played in the first half of the year, and it shows. You've got teams like Columbus and the Rangers biting at our heels, getting ready to overtake us. Luckily, Carolina has also been in a little bit of a slump, so it's helped keep those points pretty close together. I think New Jersey overall has only been like 4 points away from Carolina this entire time, but we have an easier schedule going into the rest of the year, so that's something that's sort of, good to hang on to. So, without further ado, let's jump in to New Jersey Devils trade deadline this year. So, what did we do? What did we do wrong? And how much do we hate Fitz, if at all? So, first of all, I'm going to go through all the moves that we made on the trade deadline. So first and foremost, the Devils acquired Daniel Sprong in exchange for a second-round pick in 2026. His contract is worth about $975,000, so it's a good pickup. It gives us the depth that we're looking for. Unfortunately, having to give up a second-round pick does seem kind of steep. It really depends on where Daniel Sprong ends up being with the Devils, whether he's just for this year until our injuries recuperate, or we shove him off, or re-sign him at the end of the year. But overall, I think the second-round pick is a little steep in terms of what we're giving up. Granted, it's not going to be a pick in this year's draft. It'll be a pick in the following year's draft. I don't know if that makes a huge difference, but Daniel Sprong for a second is the trade, so we get that. Again, he's only worth $975,000, so it's not like you're having to take on a huge amount of the contract. Number 2, Devils acquire Cody Glass and Jonathan Gruden for Chase Stillman, Max Graham, and a third-round pick in 2027. His contract, Cody Glass's contract, is worth about $2.5 million. So, I'm going to be honest, I don't think this is the worst trade in the world. Now, I understand having to take on a guy like Cody Glass, who has been unbelievably inconsistent over the last couple of years and hasn't really produced a whole hell of a lot. But when your option is Cody Glass or Eric Holla, the man who has not got a point, besides the last game against Philly, has not got a point, not a goal, not an assist, but not a single point since November, at that point when the bar is so low, anything is going to be an upgrade. So, that's a positive thing, I think. Now, again, having to ship off a third-round pick for Cody Glass, because no one really cares about Jonathan Gruden. He's going to be an AHL guy. He's going to be a guy we'll probably toss in later down the road as a trade asset. He's not really going to be doing much for us. But Cody Glass for $2.5 million, it's not the worst thing in the world. It really isn't. I know a lot of people like to mention that he won the Stanley Cup in Pittsburgh, but this is years and years removed from where we are right now. But in terms of what we're getting for Cody Glass, again, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. He's $2.5 million. He's basically either going to be a rental, although it looks like we're going to be re-signing him in the offseason, because having Eric Holla, unless he really shows what he's got, unless he goes on like a 30-point streak in the next 20 games, I doubt Eric Holla stays with the Devils for much longer. So Cody Glass might be a good replacement, might not. We'll have to see. Overall, for what we're looking for in terms of the depth in order to add to our bottom six, I don't think he's a bad pickup. Having to get rid of a third-round pick 2 years from now, again, it's not the worst thing in the world. Right now, the Devils are not looking to draft. The Devils are looking to pick up quality pieces in the offseason and at trade deadlines to add to our team. Right now, I think the Devils aren't really looking at drafting guys. They're looking at about a 5 to 7 year window, I think, between Nico, Bratt, Jack, and the rest of the squad, Meyer and the rest of them. I think we're looking probably at about a 5 to 7 year window in order to pick up pieces if we're looking at winning a Stanley Cup. That window is probably going to be in the next 5 to 7 years. 7 is a little bit far off, but I think right now when you've got guys in the organization that are like 25, 26, I think when they get to like 28 to 32, that's probably a nice little window where they've gotten enough years under their belts, and that's probably going to be the time where the New Jersey Devils are going to be the most threatening, because right now, it's just not it right now. This team is not playing like it is. So overall, the Cody Glass choice is nice. It's a good pickup. It fills a need for our bottom six. Moving on, the Devils acquired, I can't remember what his first name is, but Devils acquired Cholowski for Adam Beckman. Now, Cholowski's, he's from the Islanders. His salary is only worth $775,000. So again, he's basically making league minimum. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm pretty indifferent to this. I don't think it does anything to us positively. I don't think it does anything to us negatively. I'm pretty indifferent. The two major things that we're looking at for trade deadline is Sprong and Glass, which I think fills the needs the Devils were going out to look forward to. And finally, the New Jersey Devils decided to sign a contract and extend Kovacevic. It's a 5-year deal, $4 million a year, so he'll be getting $20 million total for 5 more years with the New Jersey Devils. I actually really like this contract. Kovacevic has been fantastic with the Devils this year. He's definitely rebounded off his time in Montreal. He's come to the Devils, and he's been a really important piece for the New Jersey Devils defense. So rewarding him with a $4 million contract with a nice length to it, I think shows the appreciation that Fitzgerald has for Kovacevic. I really do. I think it's a nice little contract, and you know what? If he ends up not working out for us 2 or 3 years in the future, you can always bundle him and toss him in for a trade piece later on. It's not the worst thing in the world, and I think for what Kovacevic brings to the Devils, I think he is worth that amount of money and that kind of contract. It gives confidence in him. Hey, this is a team that wants me to stick around, that is trusting me, and is showing a little bit of loyalty for what I'm bringing to the team this year. I like it. It's a good piece. Now, this is where things are going to get kind of interesting. This is the part of the video that I was, not going to lie, a little bit anxious to talk about, because I do think it has been the source of heated contention on social media for at least 3 or 4 days. We're going to talk about whether or not I think that Tom Fitzgerald dropped the ball during this year's trade deadline, and speaking about Mikko Rantanen. So, this trade deadline, the number one piece on the board that was moving was Mikko Rantanen. He is, for those of you who don't know, who I guess are living under a rock for the time being, if you're watching hockey at all, Mikko Rantanen has been a huge piece for the Colorado Avalanche. Recently got traded to I'm an idiot, why am I dropping the ball on this? The Carolina Hurricanes. And the Carolina Hurricanes were looking to move him in the offseason after Rantanen telling them, I have no interest being here. So, I think everyone was gunning for Rantanen this trade deadline. And that, I think, was Fitzgerald's plan. I think Fitzgerald had one plan and one plan only, and that was to go get Rantanen. Rantanen would have been the solution to our issue with losing Jack Hughes. He has about the same number of points as Jack Hughes, and would have filled the same kind of role that Jack Hughes has been playing on our team. Here's the issue. Okay? Here's the issue. There was no shot. There was zero shot in hell that Rantanen was coming to the Devils. And I know, it's a contentious thing. And Fitzgerald, in my opinion, should have known better. He should have known better that Rantanen probably wasn't coming to the Devils. Now, you might be asking yourself, how can you say that? How can you say that there was no shot that Rantanen was going to sign with the Devils? Well, let's think about this for a second. Rantanen ended up signing an 8-year contract worth $12 to $12.5 million a year with the Dallas Stars. The New Jersey Devils, in order to beat the Dallas Stars' contract that they offered to him, was either going to have to give him more length contract-wise, so 9 or 10 years, which is unheard of in the NHL. It's just unheard of. Or 2, have to give him more money, which means you were going to have to pay Rantanen about $13 million a year just to keep up, just to be competitive with the offer the Dallas Stars ended up giving him. That was never going to happen. And I know a lot of people have been saying, well, that's too bad. The Devils should have paid more. The Devils should have priced themselves out. They should have overpaid for Rantanen. Here's my issue. You want to overpay for Rantanen? I understand the need for Rantanen. I understand the want for Rantanen. But Rantanen is not worth $13 million a year. He's not worth $12 million a year. He's a solid $9 to $10 million player, maybe 10.5 if you push it. Here's the issue. You want to sign Rantanen to $13 million a year? How are you re-signing Nemitz? How are you re-signing Hughes? How are you re-signing Hamilton? How are you re-signing Hughes and Bratt and Hischier when all of their contracts come due? Because their contracts are going to come due. And if you're telling me, if you're going to look me in the eye, and you're going to tell me that you would rather sign Rantanen than Hischier, than Hughes, than Bratt, guys who are foundational to where the Devils are today, then you are outside your mind. And I say that with all due respect. You are outside your mind if you think that the Devils are going to sign Rantanen over the big three. It's just not going to happen. Nico Hischier is your number one center. Jack Hughes is your number one point guy. He is your elite superstar. If you think that you are getting rid of Jesper Bratt, your number one point guy, the most efficient point per game player the Devils have had since their heyday in the early 2000s, then you are outside your mind. Jesper Bratt had over 80 points last year on a Devils team which shit the bed. I don't know how anyone looks at the Rantanen situation and goes, the Devil needed to get him. Damn the consequences. Damn everything else. We need to go get Rantanen. And for what? Rantanen didn't even want to come to New Jersey. And how do we know that? Because he said so himself. Rantanen, according to the most recent reports that came out yesterday or the day before that, Mikko Rantanen had 4 teams he wanted to go to. Those teams were the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Vegas Golden Knights, the Dallas Stars, and the Florida Panthers. Those were the 4 teams that he wanted to go to. Not to mention that if you think for a second that Carolina was going to trade arguably one of their best players in raw talent to a division rival who they were going to play in the first round, most likely this year, then you are outside your mind. Why? Think of it from a business perspective. Why would the Hurricanes give up their best asset to the team that they're going to have to compete with in like a month and a half? It's just not going to happen. Carolina wasn't going to do it, and Rantanen didn't want to do it. Okay? I don't see how Rantanen was even a possibility. I know we all hyped ourselves up and we all enjoyed it and we all had the, oh, we're going to get Rantanen. We're going to bring him in. He's going to replace Jack Hughes. Looking back on it, and hell, I'll even admit it, I fell for this. Because I was tweeting out a couple days before the trade deadline, oh man, it looks like the Devils are going to gun it for Rantanen. And I think Fitzgerald did try to do that. I think Fitz, in his press conference, he openly said, he didn't mention Rantanen, but he said, hey, our trade deadline goal was we were trying to get this one guy, and we came in second place. Now, we don't know if that guy was Rantanen, but I'm like 90% sure that he meant Rantanen. But if Rantanen didn't want to come to the Devils, if Carolina's not going to trade him to the Devils, I don't know how Fitz was going to bring him to the Devils. I just don't know. Now, this brings us to the third part of the video, which is, do I think that Fitzgerald screwed up in this trade deadline? Do I think we should call for his head? Do I think we should remove him as general manager? Well, it's complicated. Number one, do I think that Fitzgerald screwed up during this trade deadline? And the answer to that, I think, is yes. I do think he screwed up in the trade deadline, but not in the way that you might think. I think that Fitzgerald went into that trade deadline with one goal and one goal alone, and that was to get Rantanen. He didn't make a backup plan. He didn't make a plan B, a plan C, a plan D in case he didn't get plan A. And I feel like the Dumoulin trade, I feel like the Sprong pickup, I feel like the Glass pickup were last resorts, whereas Fitzgerald scrambling to find something to add to the Devils given the state that this team is in. Dumoulin's fine as a pickup, Glass is fine as a pickup, and Sprong is fine as a pickup. They're whatever. They're fine. They'll do. But I don't think that Fitzgerald had enough foresight to go, oh shit, what if we don't get Rantanen? Oh shit, what if we don't get Nelson? Oh shit, what if we don't get like the big ticket item for the trade deadline? Everyone's going to call for my head. And everyone has called for his head. Okay? Number two, do I think that Fitzgerald should be fired? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think that Fitzgerald has garnered enough good faith, at least to me. I understand that a lot of people disagree. In my opinion, he's garnered enough good faith that I think that while we can criticize him for this trade deadline, I think that he's done a lot for this organization to make us better, that I'm willing to not necessarily let it slide, but I'm willing to go, okay, Fitz, this isn't a good look for you, but I'm willing to overlook one bad trade deadline because you've already done so much. I mean, really, how many people do you know? How many Devils fans do you know that when he signed Timo Meier, everyone lost their collective minds? We went, holy shit, the cup run is on. Okay? How many people, when he brought on board Bratt and Heischer and Hughes and Dillon and Pesce and Hamilton and Siegenthaler and Kovacevic and Markstrom, how many people collectively went, even just in last year's offseason, how many people went, holy shit, the Devils are going number one in the East? Holy shit, the Devils now have their goaltender. Holy shit, the Devils now have their defense. There were people that I know today that are calling for Fitz's head who, like 7 months ago, who like 6-7 months ago, were saying Fitzgerald is the best GM in the world. I don't understand, and this brings us to the last part of the video. I don't understand how Devils fans have gone from, holy shit, this is the cup run, holy shit, we have a 2 to 3 year window, to, burn it all down and start over. I can't tell you how many Devils fans I have watched say, sell the team, burn the project to the ground, start over, fire Fitz, and even not only just fire Fitz, but also have 180'd on their feelings about this team. This team is dog shit. This team is shit. No one on this team is good. It's all crap. Start over. This isn't a winning team. What happened? What the hell has happened? What kind of Devils fans are we that after one bad trade deadline, we're willing to say, turn on everyone? Turn on everyone, sell the org. Jokes are not jokes. And again, I'm not trying to say that Fitzgerald is the greatest GM the world has ever seen. I've openly said in this video already that Fitz did not do enough at the trade deadline. I've already said that I think he panicked. I already said that I think that he didn't plan well enough ahead. I've already criticized Tom Fitzgerald. And well-meaning and constructive criticism is always a good thing. But I'm not seeing constructive criticism from Devils fans anymore. I'm seeing this team sucks. This team is not going anywhere. It's not worth cheering. Don't buy tickets. I'm not watching any more games. I don't understand it. I don't understand how, I mean, you compare the team we have today. You compare the team we have today and compare that against the team that we had 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and you look me dead in the eye and tell me that the team we have today, despite all the injuries, despite all the issues this team is facing right now, and you look me in the eye and tell me the New Jersey Devils team from 6 or 7 years ago is better than this team. You're outside your mind if you think that. I don't know what to tell you. It's bananas. It's actually bananas. This team is still better than what we had even a couple years ago. They're not producing. People need to step up. People need to bring their A game, and changes have to be made. But this team is the same team that we all cheered for 4 months ago. That we all were saying, it's on. Playoff deep run. Number 1 in the Metropolitan. Number 1 in the East. This is that same team. And it genuinely hurts. It genuinely hits you in the gut when I'm seeing Devils fans, or should I say Devils fans, that are actively hoping the team implodes. That is actively hoping that this team doesn't, that are cheering for failure, that want to see this team not do well now because they're upset with Fitz at the trade deadline. It is unhinged. As I have said, constructive criticism is always okay. But this, we're getting off the train, we're going off the deep end, the character attacks, the he's a piece of shit, that this team sucks, has got to stop. If we are fans of the team, we can criticize them, but you've got to stick with your team in the good times and the bad times. And right now, I'm not convinced that right now, in a long story view, I am not convinced that this is a bad time. In this season, it's a bad time. But in the long haul, this is not a bad time. This is simply a stepping stone to greater things. And that's where I think I am when it comes to this entire trade deadline fiasco. So, we're going to go ahead and end it there. If you've made it to the end of the video, thank you for watching all the way through. If you disagree with anything I have said, feel free to leave it in the comment section. Make sure it stays respectful. Make sure it is constructive criticism. Because if all it's going to be is screaming, and all it's going to be is yelling, and all it's going to be is name calling, I'm just not going to respond. And there's been people who have given me constructive criticism over the last 3 years on this channel, and I've taken those into consideration. But please, if you're going to disagree, make sure it's constructive. we can have a back and forth. For those who do leave comments all the time on these videos, you guys know I try my best to respond to your guys' comments, and I've even had back and forth in our comment section. So yeah, I think that's where I'm going to end it, guys. Adios, and I'll talk to you tomorrow night as the New Jersey Devils play the Columbus Blue Jackets. Let's get that 2 points, and let's go Devils. Adios.